I want to welcome you to the December 7th, 2025 message here at Meadowbrook Baptist Church called God Sent Gabriel from Luke chapter 1, verses 26 through 38. Born in 1874, Travers John Haggerty grew up and studied to be an architect. But soon after becoming an architect, he changed his mind and became an actor, a stage actor, and he changed his name to Henry Travers. Eventually made his way from England to Broadway and did a number of roles for many years there on Broadway. His last Broadway show was You Can't Take It With You, 1933. At that same year, he began acting in films. Altogether from 1933 through 49, he acted in 52 different movies. Most of them, he was a benevolent, bumbling old guy, usually playing a supporting role. Some of his more well-known movies include The Invisible Man, 1933. I've watched that one. Dark Victory, High Sierra, another classic, and Mrs. Miniver in 1942, for which he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. But Henry Travers is best known for his two Christmas films, The Bells of St. Mary's in 1946, and then It's a Wonderful Life. In The Bells of St. Mary's, he co-stars as a rich building developer with Ingrid Bergman and Bing Crosby. And if you haven't watched The Bells of St. Mary, check it out. I think you can look at it on YouTube. But in 1946, perhaps his most famous role was as Clarence Oddbody in my favorite Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life. The film opens with people in Bedford Falls, New York, are praying for a man named George Bailey, who is the manager of locally owned, family-owned business, the Bailey Building and Loan. And that night, due to a string of unfortunate events, he's contemplating jumping off of the bridge and taking his own life. All these prayers are going up for George Bailey. The chief angels in heaven, one being named Joseph, is asked which angel's turn it is to go down to earth and help George Bailey and keep him from taking his life. And the answer he's given was it's that clockmaker's turn, who has the IQ, Clarence, who has the IQ of a rabbit, but the heart of a child. Clarence Oddbody, angel second class, is summoned and given the assignment to help George Bailey, played by Jimmy Stewart, keep him from committing suicide. And before leaving for his assignment, Clarence Oddbody turns to Joseph, the angel, chief angel, and asks, if I am successful, would it be possible that I might finally earn my wings? And he is assured that if he is successful, yes, you can get your wings. Of course, by the end of the movie, Clarence Angel is successful. George Bailey says it'd be better if I was never born, and Clarence gives him a picture, an experience of what it would have been like. But when he comes to his senses and George Bailey runs home and he finds all the townspeople gathered there to support him and financially bail him out of the situation, everyone is singing, "Hark the Herald Angels Sing." And George Bailey has his young daughter Zuzu on his hip, and somebody bumps the Christmas tree and the bell rings, and she says this famous statement, every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. And so I guess in the movie, Clarence gets his wings. Of course, this is totally fictitious and fanciful, but it did make for good entertainment. Still my favorite Christmas movie. But often angels make their way into Christmas movies. Have you ever noticed that? Like The Bishop's Wife, where Cary Grant plays the angel named Dudley, and later in the remake of the same film, the angel was played by Denzel Washington. And so as you notice that as you watch these movies, oftentimes the mysterious or an angel will be brought in. But this morning we will be looking at how God sent the angel Gabriel to a small town in Nazareth, in Galilee, named Nazareth, to announce to a young virgin named Mary that she would give birth to the Son of God. This morning we will not only see the powerful message of this angelic announcement of the miraculous conception of Christ, we will be inspired by Mary's response to surrender herself as the Lord's servant and ask that the word of the Lord be fulfilled in her life. Today, we're not going to be looking at fictitious angels, but the facts of how God sent a messenger, Gabriel, to make this magnificent, miraculous announcement. But my question, as you hear what the angel has to say, will you respond in the same way that Mary responded, saying, I am the Lord's servant. May his word be fulfilled in my life. So we read here from Luke chapter 1, verses 26 through 38, where it says, in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. Now the virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said, greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you. Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said to her, do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end. How will this be? Mary asked the angel, since I am a virgin. The angel answered, the Holy Spirit will come on you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you, so that the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age, and she who was said to be unable to conceive is in her 6th month. For no word from God will ever fail. I am the Lord's servant, Mary answered. May your word to me be fulfilled. Then the angel left her. So we begin with, in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, the town in Galilee. Of course, Elizabeth was Mary's elderly cousin, a relative, to whom would be born John, who would be nicknamed the Baptist, John the Baptist. She was in her 6th month of pregnancy, and at that time, God sent Gabriel to Nazareth. Back in the 80s and 90s, there was a fascination and several shows involving angels, and a couple of popular ones. Of course, was Highway to Heaven with Michael Landon. And the one Patricia and I really liked was Touched by an Angel with Roma Downey and Della Reese. And whereas these are fictional characters, folks, angels are very real and found throughout the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. They are supernatural beings created by God to worship him and to carry out his commands and to watch over his people. In the Bible, however, other than Satan or Lucifer, there are only two other names of angels, two other angels that are named, one being Michael, who we find in Daniel chapter 10 and 12, and is referred to the prince of the people of Israel. He is the angel that overlooks the people of Israel. We also find him in Jude, the book of Jude, and of course in Revelation. But the other one that is named here is Gabriel. Gabriel is found 3 or 4 times in the Bible. In the Old Testament, Daniel chapter 8 and chapter 9, Daniel has this vision, and God sends Gabriel to explain to Daniel this vision about the future, about God's plan. And there in Daniel chapter 9, it talks about the 70 weeks of prophetic weeks and God's plan, first of all, to send his son. And it mentions about the 69th week. And there in Daniel chapter 9, some very specific dating that leads right up to the time of Christ's birth and his death on the cross. In Daniel chapter 9, it mentions the 70th week, this coming week of 7 years at the end of time when Christ will come again. But Gabriel is there making that announcement about the coming of Christ and his coming again. And here in Luke chapter 1, we see again with the coming of Christ, Gabriel appears. He tells Zechariah that his prayers have been heard, and Elizabeth, your wife, would give birth to a son named John. And verse 19 of chapter 1 of Luke, it says, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God. I have been sent to speak to you and tell you this good news. Now, the name Gabriel means the strength of God, or God's strong man. Can you imagine your job as an angel? You are to stand in God's presence. And then when it's time for him to announce something magnificent and to tell others, hey, it's time, this is what's going to happen. I am revealing my plan of what's going to happen. And God sends Gabriel to, first of all, tell Zechariah that Elizabeth's going to have a son, and here to name him John. And he is going to go on in the spirit and power of Elijah to prepare the way of the Lord. He would be the forerunner of the Messiah. Just as he announced God's plans to Daniel and to Zechariah, now God's sending out Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee. God sent Gabriel. Now, a lot of times I've preached this message from Luke chapter 1, verses 26 through 38 about the miraculous conception of Jesus Christ, the announcement to angels, announcement to Mary, but it really stood out to me this week, where it says God sent the angel Gabriel. He said, Gabriel, now's the time. Go, I am sending you. You see, God has a plan that he is accomplishing. He has a plan from before eternity began for our salvation, for all things. and Christ coming again in his eternal kingdom. God has a plan. And at the various points in his plan, he sends out Gabriel. He says, Gabriel, it's time for you to go. I'm sending you to Nazareth, that town in Galilee, to Mary. Now, Nazareth was really a small village at that time, about 70 miles northeast of Jerusalem. It was nestled on a ridge on the north side of the valley of Jezreel, or it's also in the Old Testament called Esdraelon or Megiddo. But at this time, Nazareth was kind of a hick town, a small little out-of-the-way town up there in the hills, a little bit out of the way. And you might recall in John chapter 1 where Philip goes and finds Nathanael, tells him, we found the Messiah, Jesus of Nazareth. And what does Nathanael say? It says, Nazareth, can anything good come from Nazareth? He kind of disparages Nazareth. But in the Bible, we find that this is part of God's plan once again. That the Messiah, the one coming, would be called the Nazarene. You see, Nazareth means branch. And Jesus, as we saw when we were looking at Jeremiah 23, would be the righteous branch. The Lord our righteousness. The righteous branch. And so you see, something is very important about Nazareth. In fact, often in the Gospels, Jesus is called Jesus of Nazareth. In fact, that day that Jesus Christ died on the cross, Pilate had that notice prepared and nailed above Jesus' head on the cross. It said, what? This is Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Here Gabriel would go. We saw a couple weeks ago, Isaiah 9:1 through 2, that the land living in the shadow of darkness, Zebulun, and Naphtali by the way of Galilee, those people living in darkness have seen a great light. And this very place the angel went to make this amazing announcement. As we read this passage, it drips with the significance of the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy. It says he was sent to a virgin named Mary, pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. First of all, we're going to look at here more in depth in a moment, the part about the promise that the virgin would conceive and give birth to a son who will call his name Emmanuel, from Isaiah 7:14. We see here that she is betrothed, which in those days it was kind of like engaged to be married, but more serious than that, because if you were proved to be unfaithful during that time of engagement, it called for a divorce. You could divorce someone that you were betrothed to. This period we call the kiddushin, this time of waiting. If during that time the woman turned out pregnant, then there would be this divorce. She was engaged to be married to Joseph, as well a descendant of David. Of course, the promise was to King David back there in 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 14, that David, one of these days, you're going to have a son who will reign on your throne, and he will call me Father, I will call him Son, and he will reign on your throne forever. Again, in Psalm 89, Psalm 2, maybe Psalm 110, I believe, and many other places, it refers to this promise. And so we see here God sending Gabriel in fulfillment of this plan and to these promises. And he comes to this virgin whose name was Mary to announce to her this amazingly good news. He says, greetings, you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you. Now, this word greetings, by the way, Kyrie, it basically means rejoice. And just as sometimes, well, still today Jewish people greet one another, shalom, peace. Here the common greeting was also rejoice. And the idea is in the Lord you can rejoice. And in this news, rejoice. The angel wasn't just saying, hello there, Mary. No, he was bringing her good news, just as he would later bring to the shepherds, good news of great joy for all the people. Hey, rejoice. As we read about Gabriel being sent to Mary, think about, hey, the Lord's coming to you. He says, hey, David, hey, John, hey, Sarah, rejoice. You are highly favored. This word highly favored is literally means filled with grace. Filled with God's grace. Now, oftentimes, people get carried away and think, well, Mary is the dispenser of grace, but rather he is the receiver of grace. He's a receiver of God's grace.